This course will introduce the student to the variety of parts that make up a computer or a cell phone, a tablet, or a printer. You'll be able to recognize the major parts such as the electronic boards, the cables, power supplies. You'll also learn to recognize the different connectors that are involved in the cables as well as the connectors on the PC or the server itself. Why do you need to know these things? Well, number one, it makes you more of a court expert if you go to court. If you can explain, you already know how a laser printer works. It also helps you in identifying legacy hardware and software. If parts of your computer fails for your forensic computer, there's less support problems. Also, if you have errors in software, you can trace down that it may be a hardware piece that's causing the software to fail. And that comes back to the testing of software and hardware. But most of all, it raises the expert level in forensics when you know about how to identify hardware and software. So what is hardware? Well, hardware is something you can touch. It's not the software that you can't touch. It's that piece of plastic, that metal, that electronics board that makes up a computer system. Right, the answer was software. But now let's take a look at the hardware in general for PCs. So what's a desktop PC? It's normally one or more boxes. They usually have a monitor that's separate. And you can insert new hardware and new software into the system. As you can see from the photo in the bottom right hand corner, it can involve quite a few different items from PC boards to disk drives. A laptop's all-in-one. It's very light. New hardware is possible, such as add-ons for hard drives or memory. And you could add in PCMCIA cards and specialty cards to add like a cell phone connection or a new network card. It's easy to insert new software as you can do on a normal desktop. The worst thing though it's the easiest to steal because it is so small. A tablet is nothing more than a laptop with a touch screen, and it does not have a normal keyboard attached to it like a laptop computer would have. You may have USB ports that can accept new software known as apps, and that's usually done over a network connection. But like I said, if it has a USB port, you may be able to add apps via the USB port. You can update the OS. That's normally done over the network also. And there are a variety of OSs for tablets, otherwise known as operating systems. You have Android and Windows, Linux, Android, or just four of the major ones that are out there. Without a doubt, this is becoming one of the most popular items made, and they are customizing them today for a specific need. UPS and FedEx uses a special tablet to do their deliveries. In hospitals, emergency room, they'll run a special app specifically for the emergency room as people come in. Cellular phones, they're the same as a tablet except they're a lot smaller. They're almost like having a computer right in your hand. The primary purpose is as a communication device on the cellular network, but the same communication device can also be used on Wi-Fi and Bluetooth to make phone calls as well as receive phone calls. There's a growing number of them, and they have different operating systems. They can be an iOS system, an Android, a Linux system, or a Windows-based, or otherwise known as Windows CE system. All four are going to have to be learned to be able to do forensics on a cell phone. And besides the operating systems, phones today are starting to be used for all types of applications for business as well as personal. You can have the Square, which allows you to take credit cards, and a lot of people are going to that with their cell phones, taking credit cards to small businesses, as well as a wallet. So instead of having cash or even using credit cards, you just swipe your phone over the device and it becomes your method of payment. And of course, there's a growing number of applications and all types of apps. The problem being, in forensics, most of the apps are privately made and aren't well documented. So thusly, a lot of the apps today are going to have to be reverse engineered so we know forensically what to look for. And that's one thing you'll run across a lot in cell phone forensics. Applications that you've never seen. and you will have to test and reverse engineer what files are going where and what do they hold. The major components of a PC mainly is the main case, and within inside that would be the motherboard, the peripheral cards, an expansion port, power supply, then the disk drives and multimedia drives. It'll also have either a VGA or HDMI monitor, and if you have one from just a few years ago, it'd have a digital monitor output. You have to have a keyboard and a pointing device such as a pen or a mouse or a roller ball. And then there's always add-on peripherals that you can add on to these, everything from scanners to projectors. There are generally 4 types of cases, and the cases vary depending upon how many drive bays you want inside the case. The original case was a PC case, and then they have AT and ATX, and then there's proprietary cases. Here's an example of 2 cases, normal tower cases. You'll notice the amount of drive bays in the one on the left, and then the one on the right, the multiple power supplies in there to support multiple drive bays as well as video cards. They are very popular by the use of programmers, engineers, hackers, and gamers. Here we see some more examples of tower cases. From the far left, a normal standard tower case, and they get smaller and smaller all the way till you get what they call the small form factor on the far right hand side. You see that a lot in businesses, hotels, and hospitals, where it's basically just a small PC with a small hard drive, because most of what they do is via a web interface or a telnet interface into a main system. Here's another example of that horizontal small form factor. And yes, you're going to see all types of custom-made cases, such as the Lego case on the left side. Very popular thing that's being done by hackers and gamers. And then gamers, of course, when they're showing off their PCs, or an engineer would like to make something like the V8 on the right-hand side. These are some of the more prime examples that you'll see in the field. Here's a basic list of all the different types of motherboards that you'll see in the field or in PCs today. So really, what's on a motherboard? It doesn't really matter if it's anything from an extended ATX motherboard all the way down to that micro ITX motherboard, which is really small. They'll mainly have most of the same types of connectors and ports on them, such as the serial ATA for a RAID header. That's for a bunch of computer hard drives connected together. USB headers, you'll have serial ATA headers, PCI slots, different types of PCI slots, as well as RAM slots, the CPU connector, ports on the left-hand side for anything from a microphone and speaker to a printer. Here's a short listing of the peripherals or cards you can add into a motherboard, or they'll be on the motherboard, one or two. And we'll go through most of these in the following slides. Here we have memory, otherwise known as RAM. Throughout the legacy environment is where you saw the 30-pin and 72-pin SIMs. That would be circa 1990s, and they were very expensive at the time. Normally a couple hundred to into the thousands of dollars a piece. The more modern ones are the 240-pin DDR2 DIMMs, which are still in the $100 range, anywhere from $16.80 up to $150 for 16 gigs of RAM, compared to the 30-pin SIM that you see in this photo, which was 16K of RAM. So basically in a span of about 15 years, they increased the size of the RAM 1,000-fold. Here's an example of laptop memory that you'll see.